For the price of a new Toyota Corolla, you can buy a 6-liter, 12-cylinder, twin-turbo, leather-laden Bentley. That's right, these Bentley Continentals can now be had in some cases for under $30,000 and in most cases under $40,000. And in today's video, we're going to find out, should you go the route of a cheap used Bentley, or will it be a financial nightmare? Let's get into it. Now, instead of just standing here and waving my arms around talking about whether or not you should buy one, we actually went out and bought one. So this is our 2007 Bentley Continental GTC, which means it's convertible. My dad paid $35,000 of our hard-earned YouTube money for this car. We bought it down in Florida. It's got 55,000 miles, and it's awesome. There are so many cool things inside this car. So when this car was new, these had a starting price of $189,000. And that was 20 years ago. These were really expensive cars, and when you started adding on some options, all of a sudden $200,000 was pretty much the norm for this Bentley convertible. And now you can pick them up for $30,000, $35,000. What's awesome about this car though, is it still feels like a $200,000 experience, especially if you get one like my dad has found here in triple blue. That's right, it's a light blue exterior with a blue soft top, blue leather seats, and then a slightly different blue here on the dashboard. Is it old manny? Absolutely. Do I love it? Yes, I do. I think it is so cool. And then when you start looking at some of the neat little features in here, things get even cooler. The Bentley experience starts with this key, which has some real weight to it because unlike pretty much any other key, this is a real knurled metal finish. And it just feels so good in the hand. Now here you've got your Flying Wings Bentley logo, and then on this side you've got some buttons. Unlock, lock, and trunk, and it's got your key. However, one of the weird things about this car, there's two ways to start it. Much like a Porsche 911, there is a keyhole to the left of the steering wheel. You can put the key in, put your foot on the brake, turn it, and then of course the engine will glide into life. But there's a second way. Just like a brand new $250,000 Bentley, this car also has proximity sensing, so I can simply take my key, stick it in my pocket, forget about it, and then use the start-stop button down here to start the car. It's kind of funny that there's, you know, the modern way and the old school way. You get to choose. Now, the thing that you're greeted with when you step inside this car is this steering wheel, and it is so phenomenally 07 rich. I love it. Now, of course, it is lined in leather on the inside, but the rest of it is this really rich, dark wood. And this isn't some imitation wood. You know, if it's in a Bentley, it's really high quality wood, and it feels so good in your hands. I know some people hate wooden steering wheels. I love them. The downside, of course, is that it's not heated. This is from the era when manufacturers told us you can't heat wood, it's impossible. And then Lexus did it like 3 years later. But wonderful steering wheel. You get this really nice knurled finish here on this knob too, and it is still fairly advanced even by modern day standards. You do have steering wheel controls, you get volume controls, you get a button here to hang up your phone call when you're yelling at your business mate that he's messed up a transaction, cruise control here on the left, and then comes the paddle shifters. They are sort of ridiculous looking. They come jutting out of the column, and they're not actually that long, but you can control this 6-speed automatic transmission using the up and down paddle shifters. There are actually two ways to shift the car manually as well, because you do have this shifter and there is a manual gate. Now, to use this shifter, you get this B, which granted on our car is looking a little bit sad, but you push in on that scratched up B to select reverse, neutral, drive, and sport, and it gives you a really satisfying clunk when you go between the gears. And then, of course, you do have the option to shift it manually this way as well, which is a little bit fun. So we're on a nice twisty road here. Let me dial the suspension into sport and talk about the handling. Yeah, I mean, it's an aircraft carrier. It doesn't handle as bad as you might think for a 5,600 pound car. It does hold the road surprisingly well. The steering is heavy and actually remarkably communicative, considering how much V12 or W12 is between you and the front wheels. It actually is pretty quick in the steering ratio. It's a fun car to hustle around a tight road. Is it going to keep up with a 911 of the era? No. Is it going to keep up with the GTI? Maybe not, but you are going to get a kick out of watching this aircraft carrier shuffle down down a nice 2-lane. And I will say, even like the suspension in this car, it's 20 years old, but when you dial it into sport mode, there is a real difference between sport and comfort. Now, I like comfort because I'm a 1,000-year-old man, but I do see the benefit of, maybe not wanting to roll around in every corner. And you can accomplish that by changing the suspension in this car. What I love about this era of car is that you still get mechanical, highly crafted controls and gauges. So for example, here in this gauge cluster, we have a physical mechanical tachometer, same thing with the speedometer, same thing with the temperature and fuel, but you also have a little screen here in the middle that you can use to check out your navigation, see who's calling. You can even control the radio station all on the screen. So it's a really good mix of not feeling like you're staring at a tablet, but also having enough controls that make it feel relatively modern. Something that Bentley of this era does really well is making sure that all the switches and controls you interact with feel very high quality. Even things like the window switches here. Now, that they could have just used some plastic out of any other Volkswagen or Audi product, but they use these chrome metal window switches to put down the windows for all 4 of them. And same thing for the fuel fill and trunk release. Even the door handle is real aluminum. So there's a lot of attention to detail. And also, I want to draw your attention to the fact that this car does have 4 windows. So a lot of convertibles, only the front ones go down, or you only can control the front. But in this one, you've got full control of the front and back, or you can push this switch and control all 4 at the same time. It's funny, I was just talking about the great mix of physical and digital controls, but certainly the thing in here that ages this car worse than anything else is the infotainment. So we do have a screen inside this car, but it's not actually a touch screen. So you use a combination of these buttons along the side and this rotary dial in the middle to control all the aspects of this car. So let's talk about some of the interesting ones. Now, of course, it does have navigation. It's very slow and not particularly up to date, but it does still work. If you hate looking at the screen, you can use this control down here. You can also just shut it off, but everything is pretty much done through the screen. So for example, my audio controls are all done through here. So for example, I've got my radio tune, and what's interesting about this knob, it's actually a smart knob. So when you reach the end of its travel, it will actually stop in position, so you can't keep going any further, which is kind of interesting. We also have our trip information in here. We can control our vehicle settings through here. We've got our tire pressure. Everything is done through the screen. And then if you want to activate these little side panels, what you have to do is click these buttons here. There you can see we've got our Bluetooth phone connectivity going on. Now our climate control is done up here. So I can control temperature up and down using these buttons. And then if I want to control all the zones at the same time, I can push this little family of armless dudes. If I push that, now I'm controlling all of the climate zones at the same time. It's all done through here. Now, it is dated, but on the plus side, it's also fairly easy to use. I don't find it to be that intrusive, and as a whole, it could be much, much worse. This engine is such a unique experience. The only way I can really describe it is the cross between an EV and a really powerful diesel. And what I mean by that is the torque delivery is absurd. Anywhere in the RPM range, this engine is making torque. So I'm right here at 1200 RPM, it downshifts to 2500 and then just flies. It's not a particularly sonorous engine. So for example, I've got this heavily depreciated Aston Martin V8 Vantage. It's got this beautiful wailing 7,000 RPM V8. This isn't like that. This is a baritone through and through. It doesn't really benefit you to rev it all the way out to only 6,000 RPM in the rev line, but anywhere in the RPM range, especially that 3,000 to 4,000 RPM, it really boogies. Here's the thing about this car. The GVW is 6,390 pounds. Curb weight is about 5,600. So heavy car. I mean, it weighs essentially the same as a Tahoe, but instead of being a 7-seater SUV, it's a 2-door convertible. So, you got to kind of temper your expectations in terms of modern day $250,000 cars. But for an 07 $250,000 car, this thing is fast. And even though I said by modern standards it's not that quick, it still is plenty quick. Bentley was said 0 to 16 about 4.7, 4.8 seconds, depending on whether or not you got the convertible or the 2-door hardtop, because those cars were a little bit lighter. But still, I mean, you get into the turbos, and it's a properly quick experience how this car goes down the road. And that engine, yeah, it's not particularly sonorous, but it does have kind of a guttural bellow, which is cool. You know, you get kind of a whoosh out of the turbos in the front end, you get kind of a grunt out the tailpipe, and then you're gone. I'll include a drag race footage here. I mean, my Aston was a pretty quick car back in the day. My modern day standards, this car demolishes the Aston. Same exact year, you know, that Aston's got a manual, obviously, but this car, when you really get into it, yeah, it boogies. It really, really gets out of its own way. Now, down here in the center is a really interesting little panel. So this right here is going to be your heated seat control. And unlike most cars that might have 3 settings, the Bentley has 4. Actually, it has 5. Actually, it has 6 settings of heat controls with this knurled metal dial. And these seats get so unbelievably hot. Next to that, you're going to find this button. And when I push this button, it pulls up a screen here that says I can adjust the suspension. And then using this knob, I can adjust from comfort 4 settings all the way up to sport. This is, of course, a 4-corner air suspension setup. So I also have a button here where I can raise and lower the car if there's a particularly aggressive curb I need to get up. And then these teeny tiny buttons are how I can control the power roof. And that operation looks like this. Now, technically, this Bentley is a true 4-seater. In reality, though, you can see my driving position at 6 feet tall. The legroom is what I would describe as fairly minimal. There's not a lot to play with back there, but it does have a wind deflector, which does an incredible job of keeping you unbuffeted while in the car. And as with everything in this car, it's a beautiful kind of polished metal finish. And even like the tonneau cover back here is a stitched leather. So like the attention to detail on this thing is nuts. And it means that it's held up really well all these years later. Now, popping the hood in the Bentley is kind of a fun experience because you pull the lever, and then when you go to lift the hood, the actual B starts to pop out of the grille, and then you can lift up on the B to unlatch the hood, and there you see, properly jammed into the car, is the 6-liter Bentley W12 twin turbo. So 572 horsepower, 479 pound-feet of torque, mated to a 6-speed automatic and standard all-wheel drive. Now, we got to talk about the elephant in the room. The reason these cars are so affordable, and that is the question of reliability. Now, after doing some research, and actually after owning this car for a while, the powertrains are very, very, very stout. So this 6-liter W12, it was used for a long time in these Bentleys because it was a well-established engine. Now, of course, the earlier ones did experience some more issues than some of the later ones. So the earlier W12s have issues with vacuum lines. There's 2 sets, there's the uppers and the lowers. Go figure, one set is really easy to change, the other one not so much. But if you're buying one of these early cars, make sure that it has vacuum lines done, as this car has. Beyond that, the rest of the powertrains, very, very, very stout. The problem is, as you can see, working on these can be a little bit of a challenge because access is so limited. The car is not actually that big, especially the engine bay, and getting tools and hands into places you need it is a little bit tricky. Now, what about the road tripability of the Bentley? Now this is where this car excels. So my dad bought this thing in Florida, drove it home to Colorado. Only 1 check engine light, not bad, but it was for one of those vacuum-related issues I was talking about earlier. But this car eats miles like none other. You get your heated seat on, you get your premium audio system going. We do have to use this thing, which is kind of annoying, which is a little Bluetooth modulator. But anyways, you get your audio system going and your favorite tunes. Barry Manilow cruising down the road. It's pretty ace, actually. And this is a car you definitely could definitely, let me make that clear, daily drive. So we have a set of Michelin cross climates on this car, which is a pretty wild looking thing on a Bentley, but it's a true 3-peak snow rated all-weather tire. My dad just took this thing out in the snow, gripped pretty well, and with all-wheel drive, I mean, yeah, you kind of ballin' driving this car in the snow, right? And it's new enough where it's got traction control and stability control and ABS. It's got real airbags, so if something bad does happen, you're not gonna die. It's not so precious that you're really worried about getting a little bit salty. And, you know, it was tested by the best of Volkswagen to survive the harshest of climates. So yeah, you really could daily drive this car. And this car comes from the era of Ferdinand Piëch, who was an absolute madman in charge of, you know, the Volkswagen Group at the time. He was the man responsible for weird things like the WA Passat. He was also the man who was responsible for the Veyron. So he was pushing the limits of everything, and that shows in this car, right? It's kind of insane how well this car drives considering it's 20 years old. It drives very modern, and the experience is very modern. Now, when people think reliability, you know, there are certainly horror stories out there, but I think a lot of the reputation of Bentley came from the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, the eras of like the Turbo R Continentals, which were so cool, but very expensive to keep on the road, right? They had very complicated and somewhat underdeveloped hydraulic systems that notoriously would fail and leave you stranded. This was the Volkswagen era of Bentley where they redid everything, is the only word for it. They didn't keep anything the same as the previous era of this company, and they got a lot better. Not to say there's not problems. You know, this car, it's got some problems. One of the soft closed doors doesn't work. You got to kind of help the trunk open and close a little bit. So like there are things that will and can nickel and dime you, but if you're okay with that, or you're a little bit handy and crafty yourself, it is possible to keep these cars on the road for a lot less than it might some of the older era of these British cars. So yeah, it's not Toyota reliability, but the issues are well established, and other than some air strut issues, which, you know, can plague these cars as they age, and then we talked about the vacuum lines, there's not a ton of other things that go wrong. There's things like 2 batteries, which weigh 1,000 pounds each, which can fail and do fail and are expensive to fix. But if you just kind of keep up on regular maintenance, I think the car ultimately would treat you pretty well. So should you buy a heavily depreciated Bentley? Well, I think it comes down to the use case. I mean, obviously it's about as affordable as a Corolla or Camry because it's got a reputation, and I think a lot of that reputation is undeserving, especially the engines, the transmissions, those kind of things in these Bentleys is very, very, very stout. It's the little things that might nickel and dime you over time. So if you go into this car not expecting to spend $30,000, but expecting to buy it for $30,000 and then maybe budgeting $40,000 for the long run, so you have a total of $40,000 into it by the time you're done with it over a few years, then yeah, I think it would be worth it actually, because the driving experience is so special. And what else are you going to get for $30,000 or $40,000 that's going to make you feel this way? If this is your only car and you're got a strict $28,000 budget, yeah, I would say maybe look elsewhere, get the Toyota. But I really do think that as cheap as these cars are getting, they really are great to drive and not terrible to own. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I'm sure you will. This has been Tommy and Ian behind the camera. We'll see you in the next one.